Samantha Tong from Labrakeeta Marketing with one of my expert interviews, my first ever face-to-face with Booth Welsh. Could you introduce yourselves and explain what Booth Welsh is and what you do?
I'm Martin Welsh, Managing Director of Booth Welsh, an engineering services business started in 1989. We have a multidisciplinary workforce and work across a number of sectors. About half of what we do is in chemical sciences, but there's a big mixture of different sectors. We employ just over 300 people at the moment, working mainly in the UK.
Hi Aimee. I currently look after strategy, marketing and communications for the company. I've been with the business for around 11-12 years now, so
Wow.
I've seen a lot of change, a lot of pivots, a lot of change in dynamics as part of our priorities and objectives, which is exciting, keeps things very fresh. I look after the brand both inside and out, so a lot around stakeholder engagement, internal comms, our website, marketing, and particularly our brand culture inside. So really looking at how our people can get involved behind our purpose and mission, and having a sort of co-created approach to how we operate.
We were chatting at an event recently and you were talking about your journey into marketing. Maybe you could tell me a little bit of history before, what you considered before your journey into marketing, how you went about that and how it's changed things for you.
I think for me it's mainly a story of how the world has evolved since we started the business in 1989. I took over in 2009. At that point we had really grown on the back of reputation. We'd grown the business well, but we were starting to get bigger, we were starting to do more technical work, more involved in future-led technologies, and really we had to start to build the brand. We had a problem, which was the first task I'd given to Aimee when she joined. When people were asked, when they're out socially, who do you work for? And they would say Booth Welsh, and the retort was Booth who? So Aimee's first job was to get rid of the Booth who,
Yeah.
so really get the name known and the brand known, and I think we've done that.
Yeah, hopefully. It's been 12 years. My journey into marketing the company, I've been involved in the company, as I said, a good number of years and seen a lot of change in that time. I studied marketing and management at University of Strathclyde, so fantastic grounding in marketing theory, teamwork, looking at campaigns, projects, etc. But you don't really know what you're letting yourself in for until you come into a company and you actually have to dig deep and get under the skin of things. So I joined a business, and it's probably a really ideal way that I managed to kind of gain insights and dig deeper. So I joined as an intern and was able to spend a year working on my dissertation on the project.
Oh wow,
this
okay.
project, yeah. So I was able to utilise the business as a case study and actually have interviews with staff and look at where the brand was and where it wanted to go. And it was a bit of a social experiment probably for both you and the company, wasn't it? Martin said that great brand reputation, but also look at bringing in some more modern technologies. Like years ago, social media was just becoming a thing that we're talking about. We don't think of it now as never been in our lives, but there was a lot of opportunity that I knew I could look to drive forward. Martin mostly let me be quite open in terms of what we explored and experimented with to build the brand, which has been a fun journey.
I think the main reason for that was we didn't have marketing before that point. We were starting with a blank sheet of paper. How could we build the brand? What tools would we use? I think when we started to look at what was coming next, we had just bought the business from the family, so we were no longer a family business. We had to try and portray the business more as an SME and less as a family-owned business. I'm not saying family-owned isn't good, but it was a brand that we were trying to build bigger and larger. Sometimes I think the family tag was making us look smaller. One of the first things we wanted to do was to try and establish an SME brand and make the logo well known.
It's really interesting to hear about the fact that it was Booth who changing that. So you're thinking about not just the short term, because if you've been working on reputation, presumably you were still getting work in. It was the longer term growth and getting known wider.
There's a new management team. We're keen to grow the business, cover more ground, reach more customers, because we've got a really good product here. So it was a matter of making sure we had the market for the customers. And as Aimee said, it was a bit of a social experiment because we didn't know how successful it was going to be. Even drew our own logos before we had a market.
So brand identity and logos was kind of one of the first things. I think the logo had served the company well. You know, it was over 10 years or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
believe it.
And it was across all the bands and across all the signage and sites, etc. But again, you know, identity is so important in that brand image and marketing and making it recognisable. So we were able to go through a rebrand process, and that was at the same time of our new website too. So again, there was a website in place, but probably not the best design.
And there's a good reason for that.
Built in-house.
I remember going to my dad, and my dad was great at leading the business in the early years, and I went to him and said, we need a website, and he said, what do we need a website for? At that time it was ambiguous. You didn't really know an engineering services business would ever need a website.
Yeah.
There was a lot of retail companies had them.
Yeah.
They're just selling
Online,
things
essentially,
direct.
if you're more
Well,
direct to consumer.
It was hard to pitch that we needed to spend money on a website, so it was done internally.
Yeah, and we were also able to lean a little bit on like Scottish Enterprise, for example, so we got a bit of funding for our first website, didn't we? And kind of just looked to connect with experts who could help us through that initial first journey with it, and ensure that we built the website fit for purpose, because it's all very well having and spending a lot of money on a website. If it needs to do what you need it to do.
Yes, I've certainly come across quite a few clients where they've got a really pretty website that they've unfortunately spent an awful lot of money on, but it doesn't work for your target audience. They can't navigate it. Yeah.
I think that came at a great time when we were starting to look at the content market exploded, didn't it?
Yeah.
And for us, really looking at bolstering our website digital presence with strong LinkedIn, Twitter, X, whatever it is, it was Twitter at the time, Facebook as well. Do you know, again, that was very popular at that time, and really looking at boosting the brand through digital comms, and that was a big next phase of evolution for us in terms of the brand piece.
The brand really ran in parallel with our sales efforts. We did have one or two salespeople that came and went with the business, but the one thing that has persisted is marketing. We don't have any direct sales now. We sell through our leadership team. We rely heavily on the brand building and the reputation that we have in the market, and a lot of that we've been able to do now is because we've had such a consistent increase in how we've built the brand.
Yeah.
And I think that points to a lot of our client evolution as well, doesn't it? A lot of our clients we've had for over 25 years, and we've had to continually pivot and change our services and all that brand perceptions as we go with it.
We've been going 34 years, so we've had to pivot on a lot of occasions. You can imagine having marketing strategy as it is now running side by side with how we deliver the business. The minute we have to react to a change like we had to this year, marketing's right up to speed. They're ready to make the changes, to position the business differently, to make sure we continue to get the right type of business at the right time. So, and that's a key role for us.
That is music to my ears, because you've really hit the nail on the head. You can't really have a marketing strategy if it's not aligned with the overarching strategy.
And I think it's about connecting it to that bigger piece, isn't it? There's a lot of market research, there's a lot of things you can do, there's a lot of stuff you learn at university. I remember when I first actually joined the company, I always laugh at this, like my very first day, I knew that the company wanted to expand and build on strong customer relationships, and I literally brought a marketing textbook in with me, and I was like, customer relationship management, and I went to the index and I flicked through, and I remember showing you a model, didn't I? And you were like, right, okay. But it's just translating what you know to a practical context, and it takes a bit of time, but got there in the end.
I think we had a strong business, so there was a soft landing as we brought marketing and Aimee in particular into the business. That gave us time to get the marketing competence up to speed with where we wanted to go with the business, and it just took off from there. It is something that's pivotal, it's critical to us being successful. We're now in our fourth phase of evolution, and marketing's been beside us for the last three. Strategy's been key, and now as technology starts to ramp up too, we've positioned ourselves more towards sustainability, but also digitalisation, AI coming along. We've got all the tools now that we need to grow the business in this next phase, and marketing it properly and having the right strategy is invaluable.
The first step was Booth Welsh, not Booth Who. I assume it's evolved to, you have a balance now between your lead generation and your brand awareness. Especially since if you don't have a sales team as such, that's got to be essential, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of rely on the power of the brand because of the customer relationships that we have. They are long term. We're not selling widgets. We're not selling something online. The reputation is absolutely crucial. Our marketing has really got to build that in terms of every activity and a touch point across the business, whether that's staff, whether that's the environments that we're here, whether it's our content online. The whole marketing mix is crucial.
And one thing that I've noticed from your communications and walking around here today, I love to see, because so many engineering companies skip over this, is thinking about the internal marketing as well as the external, and thinking about employer branding, not just for customers.
Again, it's been something that's been critical to our success. You can imagine when we bought the business from the family in 2011, that's a big change for people who once worked in a family business and then are going into a shareholder owned business. And then we had the next evolution when we sold the business in 2014 to an Australian company. Your internal marketing and your comms and your engagement with your staff needs to be spot on to make sure that everybody's still with you on that journey. 9 years later, when we decided to buy the business back, once again, you need that level of engagement so that you still have a business to buy when you're buying it. The people need to stay with you. We've got a really dedicated staff, but a lot of that's to do with us probably keeping them up to date with what's happening, being open and honest and transparent with comms.
And that's the brand ambassador piece that really comes into play here. As Martin said, we don't have a really active sales team that's out there driving leads. It's the people who know the business best, who are actually working hands-on in the sites, that are building that brand for the sharp end of the whole customer relationship piece, which is great. We have a communication strategy inside, it's called 100% reach. This is the idea that as we grow, we want to make sure that people know what we do, and 100% of the messages reach 100% of our audience 100% of the time. So regardless of their role, of their background, of where they're located, what the message is, we want to make sure that we're creating that great platform and culture of open, transparent comms so people can do their jobs in the best way and effectively, I suppose, sell the business in the best way and help grow it and improve it as a whole.
That makes a lot of sense. There's been a lot of research on exactly what you're talking about, a genuinely brand-focused company where everyone understands the brand and where they fit into it, makes on average double the margins of competitors in the same industry. So it makes sense that you're growing by thinking about that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, a great next phase of that for us is here you'll see behind us our purpose, our mission statement, which is through collaboration engineer a better future, and it was co-created with our staff. The pandemic, I think we'd all been through so much across 2020. We still are, to be fair. Martin was really keen to get our full team together to really think about where we've been, where we are and then where we're going. And I think having people support really helped to create this idea that if you've got that buy-in, if you've helped shape the culture and you've got a real hand in it, then you're more likely to sustain it and build it. That's a good sort of strong story in that space too, isn't it?
We first did that in 2018 after we'd started to focus on staff engagement. Again, that was led by marketing and strategy to make sure that we had everybody beside us, and then 2020 we did it again. But you really need to keep that heartbeat. It needs to be, for us, it's every 2 years. And you need to be prepared to change your plans, because we don't know anybody who has led a business in the last 5 years. It's been such a tumultuous time to try and lead a business and remain successful. But having the staff behind you and having them with you when you create the strategy, then you've definitely got their buy-in when it comes to delivering it. Having them involved in each of the strategy pillars, such that you can see how closely linked strategy and marketing are. For me, it is one and the same.
Sometimes go to a client and they think it needs to be just the leadership team, and to try and explain, if it's a huge company, you might not be able to get everyone in the room, that's not realistic, but different people from different departments, not necessarily the most senior people. Apart from anything else, it's quite often a learning experience to the leadership team. Quite often they're like, oh, I didn't know our product did that, I didn't know that was important to our customers.
It's one of these life lessons, though, isn't it, when you realise the cleverest people don't sit in a boardroom. You know, we had a board of maybe 6-7 people, but when we started looking at strategy with 36 people, we had a much better impact on the success of the business than we did previously. The board isn't the place to look for the best ideas all the time. If you open that net wider, you'll get a much better strategy and you get the engagement.
And I think now more than ever, the pace of change in the world and digital natives, Gen Z, there's a lot that people are coming to us, because we now have 5 generations in the workforce, which was crazy when you think about it. We've got quite a focus on optimising that age range across the workforce, looking at mentoring programmes, even reverse mentoring programmes, because there's a lot to learn across all different skill sets. You have to be open to learning and building in those new perspectives and ways of doing things to stay ahead. That's been a a key part of our strategy as well.
That's fantastic. The more diverse ideas that are coming in, the better the ideas are going to be at the end of the day.
Well, it's empowering people to make decisions and empowering them to bring ideas forward and not being frightened unless the idea fail fast. It really does work. You can very easily now try an idea and decide whether it's going to build the business or not very quickly.
That's brilliant. And again, that comes back to employer branding. Do people feel engaged? They feel like they've had that input, they're going to probably stay for longer.
It's connecting people to a bigger purpose, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think 2020 was a real shake-up for people to think, how do I work, what am I doing? And that's something that we recognise in terms of that whole co-created approach. And I think that as a business working a lot in the engineering technology space, we have a bit of a responsibility to ensure that we can actually leave a lasting impact. The businesses that we work with, the community that we're a part of, and actually think about how we can develop more purpose-driven ways of working. One of our newest strategy pillars is looking at community wealth building. There's a lot of fantastic things going on within this local area. DPMC is one of them. How can we support our brand to be that almost like beacon business that is sharing best practice, that's bringing different businesses from different areas together, and really thinking about how, particularly when we're more local focused now and locally owned, how we can actually build Ayrshire in particular to really be that kind of powerhouse for net zero and showcasing all the great stuff that's happening.
When I came into reception, you were talking about the work you're doing for charity, for example.
Yeah, we've actually been doing that work recently on looking at our social impact and our social value, because it isn't just about creating profit for shareholders all the time. We've had a real conscious shift in looking at that wider impact that we can have as a business. We talk a lot about the triple bottom line, people, planet and profit. You've got to make profit, but how can you engage with people when you're doing that in the wider community, and really do that in a responsible way? That's something that as a brand we put a big focus on.
I think the other thing is now the company's 100% owned by the management team, so we've all bought into this. Previously when we were part of a global organisation, it's shareholder driven, different set of values, and we can gradually see that divide happening between large global businesses and how they want to drive the business forward. We get a lot more freedom now, as you can imagine, being privately owned, but we're still a business of a good size, so we can make a good difference in this community. A lot of this has happened after the pandemic. People are focused more on place as well as people, planet and profit. You've got the other P, and I think that we've got a responsibility as a business in this area to do our part, and we'll grasp that.
Especially when people are literally working all over the world, you've now got that opportunity to unite people under that common brand, which is challenging, but it's necessary, isn't it?
That's fantastic to hear, and I think in terms of the long term, even if you take the morality out of it for a second, in terms of the long term, that's going to be better for everyone, including businesses. If everyone thought like that, it's a bit of a shame some of the really large businesses have these shareholders that just want to take all the profit out.
Not everybody thinks this way, but I think we are living through a transition. We've certainly transitioned quite dramatically since 2020 as we've gone through the pandemic, and living through this next part now, the post-pandemic, as we start to give people flexibility of work. That's about keeping the brand strong, the engagement. We need to trust the staff to work 60% in the office, 40% from wherever, and still deliver the business, and that is working. And that's all about building the engagement in the brand. We added 100 people to the business during the pandemic, and we couldn't fully induct them all. Everyone was working distance, and we were doing videos twice a week, 3 times a week, to try and keep the staff motivated and work. But really, growing a business during that period, you can't do it without the culture. You can't do it without having everybody pulling weight. It was a real testament to what we had built prior to the pandemic. Not that we ever knew it was coming, but it helped us. The technology runs in parallel with the strategy. We were already digitally enabled by the time we went into the pandemic, and that helped the IT department allow everybody to take their equipment home and work safely and defended against cyber, etc. They were all taken care of. So we were ready to be a growth business during that phase, and we've continued that.
That phrase that I really love, which is used a lot, is culture eats strategy for breakfast. You need to work on that first. I think we did a lot of that groundwork earlier on to look at our workplace innovation as a whole and how we get people behind us, and that's where you then get the magic in terms of championing, driving forward the strategy.
That's a fantastic phrase, because you get nowhere if you don't have that culture. It sounds like you were able to not just ride the storm, but grow. because you're that forward thinking, whatever disaster could happen at any time, it's a lot easier to deal with if you're ahead of the curve in terms of technology and culture.
I think the other thing is trust the management team, giving them autonomy when they were managing teams from their kitchen, living rooms and things. Having the culture and knowing that they're good enough to do that is a great comfort as you go through troubled times.
We never knew we would be in that position, but you have to adapt, you have to make it work, don't you?
It's another excellent example of that when we went to buy the business back at the start of this year. So last December was much different to this December. After 3 months we had the business, we bought it back. If the people that we hadn't continued to do the day-to-day whilst in the background we fought to buy the business, then we wouldn't have had a business to buy. It's absolutely critical that you have the engagement of the team in the internal market.
And it sounds like you continue to push it. I've been made redundant 3 times during my career because marketing was always the first thing to be cut at the first sign of trouble, which is not what you've done, clearly.
No, innovative to the team.
I've got a great team that really support our objectives to move things forward, and I suppose proving the value is always going to be challenging. Tapping into that real strategic piece, not thinking that it's all about textbooks and theory. You need to adapt your style and approach, listen to your market, go out there. We work a lot with North Ayrshire Council, for example, a lot of local authorities, Scottish Enterprise, so we understand the wider landscape and how we as a business need to adapt to fit what's coming and adapt our offerings there, which has been really fruitful for us. In fact, we're going to be the host of a new demonstration technology centre.
Yes, so the Digital Process Manufacturing Centre is a demonstration centre for digital technology in the process industries. So funded by UK Government, North Ayrshire Council, by the Scottish Government, Strathclyde University, ENMIS, CPI. It's a real mixture and collaboration of different people from different parts of education, industry, government, all coming together and developing a centre here to the benefit of everybody in Scotland and nationally. They'll be able to come in and get their hands on technology, they'll walk through the front door, they'll see our excellent branding. But for me, it really is a big feather in our cap that we can host that here.
It's like a marketing dream.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Opening in February 24.
It's not just about pushing the brand out there, it's about listening and making those right decisions, understanding who you are and what you represent to everyone. You have to understand the market in order to do that.
And I think that's something we've probably had a challenge on over the years because we do a lot. It has been difficult to tell our story in a way that people understand. There is a bit of focus next year and maybe more storytelling, animations. We choose to share a lot about our culture across our social media channels and having employees talk more about their achievements and their role within our operations and supporting our customers to be more efficient, to be more compliant, to be safer. And I think there's a fantastic story that our employees do tell, and we just need to continue to make sure the volume's always turned up very high on that.
Humans relate to stories more than they do a company. So if you're showing your people, they start to feel they get to know them.
And we're a people business, as Martin said, we sell people essentially. So we need to make sure our people are engaged, know what we do and their role, and want to work for a company like Welsh, because we don't have products as such. It is really all about people, so it's crucial.
You've already started to answer this one, but what's next for Booth Welsh in marketing?
As we start to look at what is coming next, nothing will ever be as slow as it is today. We do need to keep moving forward as fast as we can. AI is going to be a game changer in every area, whether it's services we're selling or how we operate the business internally. Large focus on technology. We attended a conference 2 weeks ago on Industry 5.0 now. Not even finished 4 yet, starting to look at 5. There's some very interesting changes as to what's going to be included in Industry 5 and how it differs from 4. So again, we're positioning ourselves to be ready for that next transition and to help our clients. Sustainability is a large part of it too. We try to be ahead of that curve. You know, we've got carbon accounts, which we did over a year ago, because we understand not only the difference that it makes to know what we use. You can't control what you can't measure, so we decided we would measure ours early, but also to help our clients with that journey. They're going to inherit our carbon footprint, so we need to be able to tell that story and show how we're controlling it, but also to help other local businesses.
It's that remaining relevant piece, isn't it? So many tools at our fingertips now, but as you say, it's about staying close to your customer. It's about looking at what those future trends and requirements are going to be. AI coming, that's going to hit us all. in an unbelievably disruptive way. So what is our relevance? What should the brand be? I don't actually know if I fully know the answer to that question. Looking at being more human-centric in terms of what we do, being more sustainable, being more purpose-led, the whole balance of the people, planet and profit, and doing that in the best way that we possibly can as a business, I think will stand us in quite good stead for the future to stay close to those values.
Yeah, we talked about place and our involvement in the local community and the circular economy, but there's also product. So as a services business, we've never had a product. And anybody who has a product business, I've got a lot of admiration for them because I now know how difficult it is to launch a product. But we have an energy monitoring product which looks at how you use your electricity mainly, but also some of your gas inside a facility that allows you to help control it. So really that idea of looking where you're using all your power or all your carbon and being able to control it. And that's something we've put together over the last 2 years. We're now at a stage where we're ready to do pilots. There are really good lessons. We learned very early when we put it in that there are large air conditioning units here that are on 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So it was an easy, low-hanging fruit at the time we're in, and there are really useful insights you can get once you have the data.
That's been so interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for watching.